All right. Looks like we did it. Excellent. I told everyone we would start at 6 p.m. tonight, so I'm going to wait 1 minute until 6 p.m. And then we will get started. I'll probably take all this hair away because there we go. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, March 10th, and what I do consider the first day of my property tax protest season. So thank you for joining us. If you're here via Zoom and you have questions, you feel free to put them in the chat. And if you're watching live on YouTube, there is also a chat box. If you put your questions in there, I will go in and check it. However, I'm flipping between screens, so I won't do that as often. You might hear some ruckus. That is my adorable dog. I am hosting the Zoom from my house, so I'm sorry in advance for the noises, but I am a mother and I have a dog, so these are the things that happen. All right, so we're going to dive right in, folks. And today we are going to discuss property tax protests. I doubt many of you are returning, having come last year or in years past. But if you are returning, this is my favorite part of the year. I love doing property tax protests. So let's get started. Cadillac Law is the name of the firm, obviously. We were established in 2013. I mainly started the firm for property tax protests. I actually was like in a class and I told people I did them. And then the next year I just started getting clients out of nowhere. So that was great. I've been serving the Oak Cliff and Dallas areas full-time since 2016. And our firm has an emphasis on real estate matters. So we do probate, we work with investors, contractors, we do estate planning, including aging planning, and we don't offer bookkeeping services, but I am working on my LLM in taxation, so I can help you with the big tax issues. Of course, this over here is myself and my staff, as well as our children. We are a woman-owned, operated, and sorry guys, that's my dog. I don't know if you can hear it, but he's having a very good time right now. We really started this business so we could raise our kids. So that's who we are. Now, I am Lauren Cadillac, as I have said already. I obtained my bachelor's degree from Arizona State University. I completed my MBA from a school called Western International University. I went to St. Mary's University School of Law for my JD, graduated in 2011, and took and passed the bar in November, or I'm sorry, I took the bar at the end of July of 11, and I found out I passed in November. Like I just said, I am working on my LLM, and I do need to change that. I don't think I'm actually going to graduate until June, but that's not because of me, that's because of the school. So an LLM is basically a master's degree in law, so I'm working on that in taxation. I got to Dallas by way of San Antonio, and because AT&T, where I had done an internship between my second and third year of law school, liked me for some reason and decided to move me up here. And so I worked at AT&T for full-time for 5 years. Like I said, I started Cadillac Law in 2013 to do property tax protests, and then I went full-time in 2016. And then in 2019, the firm was given a contract to build and manage what is called the TAPA program with the city of Dallas. So the city of Dallas contracted with us to help people clear their title and resolve title issues. That's my background. All right, now we get into the meat and potatoes. So I think the first question when it comes to property taxes and property tax protests is, why are my property taxes so high? And that is a very good question. Mainly because of growth, the idea of supply and demand. DFW is growing and changing. If you recall, Toyota came out here maybe like, was it 5, 6, 7 years ago? I don't remember how long. It's been a minute, but when Toyota came out here, that was a huge deal. That brought a lot of jobs. We continue to grow, and economies like the state of California continue to collapse. So this is what happens. So the actual management of the property tax itself is done at the legislature level, and our state legislature really likes to dump the expenses onto the counties. So over time, the legislature has gone from paying 60% of education, so like the state funding 60% of education, to now it's down to 40. And so that means the counties have had to pick up the lack, and that means that we have had to pick that up. The assessment in terms of the value that you're going to receive, your assessed value anytime after April 15th, that assessment date is supposed to be January 1st. Okay. Now, what that means is that everything that we present and everything that we look at has to reflect what the value was on the first day of January. Now, I go to a 2-day continued education seminar type thing that's put on by the state comptroller's office for the appeals, not the appeals boards, but for the appraisers who work at the assessor's office. And when I was there this year, the guy from Dallas said out loud in front of like a zillion people, not really a zillion, but it was a lot of us, that in Dallas, he will use non-January 1st. So he'll use a March 10th sale to support his January value. And if they try to do that, I want you to be adamant. The law says January 1st. Now, January 2nd, fine. January 3rd, maybe. January 4th and 5th, we're really starting to push it. Okay. But if they are trying to use evidence, or they're trying to use sales or comps that are anywhere after the 5th day of January, I would throw a fit. I will throw a fit. When I go in there, I throw fits. So the first, like, write this down, y'all. January 1st. And we know for a fact that Dallas County is out here trying to present comps from 3 months later. You can't do that. The market, this market changes too quickly. This market is too crazy. And that should be your argument to them. So that is my 2 cents there. Y'all are going to see me on a soapbox many, many times this evening. I hope you don't mind. So the county, how do they make the assessment, right? Everyone, well, in order to figure out how to counteract it, we've got to figure out how they got there, right? So when a property is a commercial or rental property, so let me make a distinction. A commercial property is used for commercial purposes. However, there are lots of folks, LLCs, whatnot, that purchase residential homes and then they rent those out. That is a rental. That is not a commercial property. It is a commercial use in the sense that you're making money off of it, but it is a residential, and under the law, it falls under residential. But the method they use on commercial and rental are the same. So that's going to be the income method and then the comparison method. Income method is really straightforward. If y'all have a commercial building and you have only 90% of it rented out, first we're going to show the vacancies. Then we're going to show what the income is. You can only be taxed on the income. That's it. You can't be taxed on anything more than the value. Can't be more than that. If the income, if we're looking at it and the income is too high, for our argument's sake, we're going to try to get them to do the comparison method. And the comparison method is what they do in residential, so residential rentals and homestead. This is going to be a retail based. Now I say retail based because in my opinion, the government's assessment of my value should be lower than the retail value. Now, the law allows them to get market value and assess at market value, and that's fine. But when I lived in Arizona, the value you were assessed at, the value the government assigned to your property was not the same as what you were selling it for. I'm just going to say that, okay? So the DCAD employees and any of the CAD employees, I'm just saying DCAD because I serve a lot of Dallas folks, and I personally live in Dallas. So I'm just using them as an example, but I'm talking any CAD here. They will use the MLS. So in 2015, I listed my home for sale to try to move to California, and I did not sell my house, but they pulled up the MLS and used the words that my realtor wrote about the house. So if you have listed your property and you've taken it off the MLS, or you recently purchased it, then you need to make sure you read what that MLS says and that you have evidence that counteracts everything that it says to show that it is false. I do like to say, it's a realtor, it's a sales pitch. Also, something I want to address right now very quickly is if you bought it this year, so if you purchased your property in 2021, you set the value. The only thing you can do is if they have assessed the value higher than your purchase price, you can send them your closing documents, your HUD-1, and they will put it at the purchase price. But you will not be able to get it lower unless you have some very extenuating circumstances. I've done it because I'm good. So if you're one of these that just bought it in the last year, it's a hard job to do, and we can talk about extenuating circumstances and if they apply to you. But it's only going to be a few of you that they do. Most of you are just going to have to bite the bullet and set the value at what you paid. Okay. So what about a homestead exemption? I mean, a lot of folks are like, but Lauren, I have a homestead. Why are my taxes so high? Well, firstly, you must be in the home on January 1st. You must be residing in it in order to get the homestead exemption for that year. So I personally purchased my house. I was supposed to close in December, and stuff went awry, and we didn't close until January 13th. That year that I closed, I did not get my homestead. I didn't get my homestead exemption. I didn't get it because we weren't there on January 1st. And ooh, I was mad. Anyhow, you have to be there on January 1st. Now, I have a lot of clients where, mom or dad maybe has passed away and we now have the house in their name, but they were living there as mom and dad were, coming to the end of their life. As long as they were living there on January 1st, whether or not it was titled in their name, whether or not, it was legally in their ownership, that's not the issue. It's that you were living there on January 1st. If I could go back in time, I would have signed a lease, moved in December, and then just closed in January, but whatever. Okay. The homestead cap does not stop value from rising. So that is a common misconception. What it does is it caps your increase at 10%. So if, let's say, your value last year was $100,000 and you have a homestead exemption, this year your house is doubled, it is $200,000. Instead of having to pay the new tax at $200,000, you only have to pay 10% more than the year before. That's the cap. So you're only going to pay taxes on $110,000. However, they can increase the value to $200,000. So now next year, if you don't protest this year, where you're up to 10%, next year, if the value is at $300,000, they're going to bump you to $220,000 because it's 10% off the year before. And that's the gotcha, y'all. That's the gotcha. Okay. So that is a huge reason that you want to be protesting as often as possible. I used to tell people protest once every 3 years, but now in today's market, it's irresponsible to wait that much. You need to protest as often, yearly, really. The 65 plus exemption, I get a lot of folks with misconception. Well, I'm 65, so I don't have to pay taxes anymore. Wow, I wish that were true. I really, really do. And now you're going to say, well, Lauren, I know this person that did. Yes, I know, but that's because their house was not worth anything, hardly at all, when they turned 65. Your property is in this market when you're turning 65. So you are going to be paying taxes. Now, that gets into my next point, which is right now, this market is super hot, right? So let's say you turn 65 and your house is 400,000 in this crazy hot market. Now you're locked. You're never paying taxes on any more than a $400,000 value. But what if then the market crashes, right? We have like another 08 or something. So now the value of your house actually goes down to 200,000. You're capped at the 400, but it goes down to 200. You absolutely can protest the value to get the value lowered, even though you're over 65. And I have had the government tell me that my client should not be protesting the value because she has a 65 plus exemption. And that just tells me that the government doesn't understand what math is. No, she's going to do that because if she can get the value lower, she's paying less money. It doesn't matter if she's exempted. Okay, so what can we do to stop the bleeding? What can I do? What can you do? Exemptions. Make sure you know as much as you can about any exemption that applies to you. And if it could apply to you, apply for it. Leading up to tonight's live, I made a series, I believe it is 10 videos or 9 videos of major exemptions that are available to Texas landowners. So when we are done here, please scroll through the Cadillac Law YouTube and find those and see which ones apply to you. You want to use all the exemptions you can, absolutely 100%. For someone like me, unfortunately, I'm, just a middle-aged mom. All I get is a homestead exemption. So, excuse me, I'm going to take a sip of water. Okay, so I feel like this goes without saying, but protest, protest, protest. The more you protest, the better off you are. And the more of your neighbors that you can get to protest, the better off you are. If all of the neighborhood gets their value down, then the values go down, right? If only 1 or 2 of you are going out there, that'll be fine for 1 or 2 of you, but it's not going to have a big wide net effect. So the more neighbors you can get out protesting, the more often you can protest. Those will help you greatly. When you do your protest, and we're going to get into this, you're going to want to look at surrounding homes that have lower values, but are similar to yours. And then you're going to want to have a lot of pictures of the condition of your property, and not the condition of like how great it is, the condition of what's wrong with it. And finally, you can hire a professional. I suggest to everyone that sits through this seminar, go to the informal on your own. Take all the advice I've given you and go sit down with the person and see if you can get the value you want. If you can, that's awesome. And I'm super proud of you. If you can't, call me and let me do it. Okay, I can go in front of the art board and I'm going to show you what we do and how I do it. But I am a professional. I have a very high success rate. I think last year there was only 1 property I didn't get a value decrease on. And it's because it didn't need, it was really valued appropriately. So I do like people to try. There's a lot of folks will hire me, they don't have the time. But if you have the time, go try it on your own. Participate in the government process, like be a participating citizen. Okay, try it. See if you like it. Okay, so we're going to now get into kind of the bread and butter, like how the protest looks. I like to put my protest into a PowerPoint presentation. I had a corporate job. I like PowerPoint. I don't know. So when I do, I'm going to walk you through an example presentation, kind of tell you about it. When I do it, the front page is going to have the address and important things to note. We have the DCAD value. So that's the value the government has assigned. And then the proposed value. The proposed value is what I think the government should give to the property, right? I think it should be, in this example, $260,000 instead of $314,000. Okay, Now, I like my first slide of substance to be the front of the house. That's just my preference. Does it work any better? I don't know. But again, like, I'm a nerd and this is how I like it. So I like the first picture to be the front of the house. I'm particularly fond of this picture because if you look at the top of that roof, there are shingles missing. So I'm getting the ARB familiar with what the house looks like, and immediately off the top, look at it. It is broken. It already needs repair. So I love this picture. All right. Excuse me. I learned kind of the hard way that anytime anything is broken at all, you should take a picture of it. So on this one, this oven looks fine. I mean, I can't see anything wrong with it except it's messy. However, on January 1st of that year, that oven was unable to regulate temperature on its own. So it has a picture, and you can see there's a label here. Pardon me, y'all. It's been so long since I've done this much talking. So you can see I labeled that the oven does not regulate the temperature. This way they can see there's an issue. I mean, you can't see the issue, but we're showing them there's an issue. Similar thing here. This dishwasher was so broken. The bottom plate's missing, as you can see, and it just didn't wash dishes. So this is actually my house. I took a picture of it before I replaced it. I got another dishwasher that I just found I used to replace this one. I just found it's leaking. So before the Best Buy people get here to install it, I will take a picture of the old leaky one. And again, you can't tell that the dishwasher doesn't work, right? It looks just like a normal old dishwasher, right? But it didn't work. So I labeled it and I let them know. Okay, here there is damage to this door and it needs repair, right? Like, this is not my favorite damage picture, but it's okay. It does the trick. I should find some better damage pictures, and I should show, if you look down at the bottom on this one, it really does appear that the molding is coming off of the wall as well. So we're not just looking for minor damages though. We really want to look for the bigger, the better. Okay. You can use your yard to a degree. They don't care really if the fence is coming down, but like one time I had a client whose the neighbor's yard was basically like a jungle, and there were feral cats going around. I mean, it was really gross. So I had them take pictures of that for me, and I presented those pictures. And it is true that if I'm out trying to buy a house and I see someone with a jungle backyard and that's going to be my neighbor, I'm probably going to pay less than if someone has, you know, a tidy neighbor that doesn't have feral cats coming around, right? So you really want to look for damage, and you want to make your picture as clear as possible. I don't love this picture. This is a good example of not a great picture, because really it doesn't show that much damage. If I zoomed out on this picture, I should actually insert a slide. Thank y'all for being here and being my guinea pigs tonight. So I'm going to go make some changes. You might want to come to the next one. There will be a few updates. If you saw the top of this door, you would be like, Lauren, why did you even bother taking a photo of the bottom? The top of it is so messed up. So that's the point. Get the mess up in the picture. And I want estimates. Like, you saw the shingle missing, right? So I want the repair cost. I want the repair estimate. How much to fix that roof? The reason I want the estimate is that's a flat deduction. If I come in and I'm like, I need a $20,000 roof, and I've got the estimate and I have pictures that show it, you could take $20,000 just off the top of that value instantly. Okay. All right. In every single one, unless it's not favorable to my client, I will do a comp. Okay. what I do is I take only the properties on the street. And the reason why, the law says that you have to be taxed at a level proportionate to your neighbors, right? So no one neighbor can be taxed more than others. The government, the CAD, when they are doing their neighborhoods, they will go way outside what you and I would consider our neighborhood. They will go outside of that to support their argument. So I go hyper focused inside of that, right? I'll show this government the actual neighbors in the actual neighborhood. This is the situation that's going on. So when we did in person, and I'm hoping that we get back to this year, I would have the government pull up a map, and I would walk up to the map and I would point around to the map, and I would tell our board, like, this is a line of delineation. Down here is ghetto. This is nice. You can see my properties in the ghetto area, right? You know, whatever it took. So that's another thing. Folks will ask, should I come to your meeting with the art board? No, you shouldn't, because I'm going to be so mean about your house. It would break your heart to hear the terrible things I'm going to say. If you're a landlord, I'm making you sound like a slumlord. If you are a regular person, I'm making it sound horrific that you live in trash. How could they live in filth like this? It's not you. It's a sales. It's me. It's because I want to win. So I like using, really dramatic language. All right. So to these comps, I'm using the neighbors, actual neighbors. And this is a rinky dink, obviously I'm not a great charter. Here, I'm taking the value that the government has assigned the property. Okay. So I'm going to their DCAD, putting in their address and getting their value. I'm taking the square footage that DCAD has, and I'm dividing the value by the square footage to get what is basically value per square foot or price per square foot. And on this one, you can see that our subject property, which I highlight, is obviously substantially smaller, but look, it's at $430 a foot. So it should be between $290 and $282 a foot. So how I would determine the value that I would present to the government, I would take the 1566 in square feet and I would multiply it by 283, because that's like a few cents above rock bottom. And that's my proposed value. This is a negotiation. So we're going to start at rock bottom. 2 cents above rock bottom works for me. All right. So I do also like to put, particularly in areas with heavy sex offenders, I do like to take a screenshot. I'll go to like the sex offender website, take a screenshot, and then put this into the presentation and, highlight, do a circle, like, look how many offenders are around us. Technically, sex offenders are not supposed to be something they take into consideration in the value. I learned in law school that there are a lot of things that you do as an attorney in a courtroom that are technically not allowed to be done. And then you just undo them. They object and you withdraw, but the jury's already heard it, right? Like, withdrawn, Your Honor, but the jury heard what you just said, so they can't actually withdraw that. And a good lawyer, in my opinion, uses all the tools that they have. And I do consider myself a good lawyer. So I am going to utilize all the tools I have. And that's that. All right. So next steps, when you hire Cadillac Law, what will happen is April 15th, we can get values. So you can either go online to the DCAD website, or you can wait until it comes into you in the mail. I personally like to wait for the mail because it's like a nice little surprise, like, oh, what'd they do to me this year? But you can do it either way. I prefer, if you're going to hire us, I prefer that you allow us to fill out the protest form. The reason for that is that there are they're reason codes. And if you don't check off those reasons, you can't make those arguments. And if you recall, I just talked about, you know, a good lawyer will say what they need to say and add the sex offender slide. I want to make all the arguments I can. I like that. So I want to make sure that we can make the arguments that apply to you and your property. If you do it on your own, that's fine, but please be cognizant of the arguments you check on the box. So when you decide to hire us, we'll send you an email. It will have an agreement, and then it will have an agency form that DCAT requires, as well. I think it's a little more documentation. You'll sign those, you'll fill them out, you'll get them back to us. You will take pictures and collect estimates, and you will upload those to us in our client management software, which is called MyCase. And so you can upload the photos to us. We then will go through and sort and choose, and we'll build a presentation. We will do the comps. We will find the sex offenders. MyCase will allow you to message us. So if you have something to add, I mean, I had a client where our argument was based on the land, and it was a really narrow kind of argument. And so he sent me a message kind of explaining it to me, what he was trying to argue, what he thought was the argument on winning. And then we talked about it, so I made sure I could do the math right. And then I used that. So sometimes there are a few issues that need explaining. Let me mention, that makes me think of something else, y'all. The government learned a while ago, and I made a joke on this presentation last year about how whoever figured this out obviously does not work for the government anymore because they're very intelligent. They figured out that if they increase the land value and they do it proportionately to each property, exactly the same across the neighborhood, there's no way to dispute that. They figured out that they can increase our value and make it so that we absolutely can't argue it by increasing the land. The only time you can argue land is if the proportionality is off, they did the math wrong. And what I mean by that is if all of your neighbors are on 1 acre and that 1 acre is assessed at 100,000, but you're on 2 acres and you're assessed at 300,000 just for the raw land, that is a proportional issue. If an acre is 100 and you have 2 acres, you should only be assessed at 200. That is one way to win on land. And then another way to win on land is unusable land, like if there's some kind of easement or a water drainage issue, a ditch, that kind of thing. Otherwise, you're not gonna be able to get the land value lower. You're only gonna be able to get the building's value lower. And some properties, the building value is so low, they can't go any lower. So that is something to look at before you decide if you even want to protest. If your land is way high and your building is really low, there's no way to get your building lower, then you're kind of stuck, really. Okay, so I want to make sure everyone knows that. But once we put together the presentation, I then go present it to the board, get you a reduction, and then I come back and I report to you later and I let you know, okay, here's the reduction we got for you. So very rarely do I not get a reduction. I think I had, like I said, one last year. Yeah, I almost always get some sort of reduction. And usually I'm satisfied. Very rarely have there been times where I felt like, no, we need to appeal. I did have a client one time. I was telling him that the government had said that they went into his house and assessed this remodel. And I thought that was interesting because the pictures that he provided me showed me that this remodel was nowhere near done. And so I mentioned that to the client and he told me, no, that man did not go in my house. I called the police on him. He left. He's never set foot in my home. So we decided to go ahead and arbitrate that one, and we did win. Sometimes, we do end up arbitrating, like when really grotesque things happen, the government lies, which does happen, folks. All right. So we are now at the point where we are asking questions and answers. I don't see any questions from my my Zoom watchers. I have this whole dog on my lap, folks. I'm sorry about that. And I don't see any questions here from my YouTube viewers either. So I am so thankful that y'all were able to join me this evening. I hope that you learned something, that there was some value in this. And if you are interested, like I said, I am going to make some updates because I realized I want to fill in these gaps and I want to show the picture of a good picture versus a bad picture. So if you're interested in coming to the next one, it will be in a few weeks, and I would be happy to see you there. And we'll do it live via Zoom and YouTube as well. Ooh, we finished just in time for me to go drink a whole gallon of water. If you need us, it's 972-845-1200, 972-845-1200.